This is my Spyderco Santoku chef's knife. As you can see, it has not lived a very easy life. It has quite a few rust spots all over the blade and needs a little bit of attention. This knife is the knife I bring with me when I'm on shift at the fire department. It does all my food prep there, goes in the bag, comes right back home, and sees quite a bit of use around the house as well. So I thought I'd put it back in working order, and while I'm at it and taking away these rust spots, I was going to do a couple little mods here to make this a little bit more friendly of a knife to use, and in my opinion, to make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. So enough talk, let's get right into the mods. I've got a couple mods here in mind that I want to do that we might potentially ruin the surface finish a little bit, cause a couple scratches. So instead of refinishing the knife and doing all that other stuff, and then having to go back and redo all of our work over again, let's save that refinishing for later. First thing I want to do is round off this spine a little bit. This knife doesn't have the sharpest spine I've ever felt in a knife. However, with a lot of meal prep, if you're sitting there and slicing and dicing for long periods of time, especially if you're holding this knife in a pinch grip like that for extra control, this does start to become a little bit abrasive on your hand and fingers a little bit, and it's amazing how much of a different feel a rounded spine can make for your knife. So we're gonna round off that spine. The second mod I want to do is do something about this rounded tip. I'm just really not a big fan of how this looks. It's just a little bit rounded, and sometimes I do like to use that tip for a little bit of precise work and piercing, and this is just a little bit too blunt to really be able to work as well as I want to. We're going to kind of make a nice quick clip on that point, make a little bit more abrupt of a change, and I think it's going to look a lot better overall. Last but not least, I'm going to see how well these magic erasers work on these little rust spots. If we need to, we're going to get out some buffing compound and just see if we can't refinish that a little bit more if those sponges don't work. So enough talking, let's get right to the working. There we have it, about 15 minutes of work, 3 sanding belts. I cheaped out and didn't get the ceramic ones, but that's a story for a different time. I think this looks 1,000 times better. It's going to be a lot more functional, especially with a nice tip there. Really do some detail work. So second part of the process here is going to be crowning off the spine. Let's tape off the blade, knock off those edges on the grinder, and then we'll do some hand sanding. time for the nice, impeccably clean cloth here because I don't want to mar up the finish, because this knife is pretty much on its final stretch. You can see there the spine is nice and crowned, only took about another 20 minutes of time. On to the final step, let's get this thing nice and shiny. Well, that didn't quite pan out. This little Mr. Clean Eraser did not work super well on the more corroded parts of the blade. I still have a little bit at the base of the knife here, then one really deep spot here on the spine. I did get the metal polish out, I gave it hell, and it's still holding up. Last resort here is going to be to use these polishing wheels that I've got for my drill. Not really my first choice because it just leaves a extremely smooth polish finish, which does stick to food quite a bit. And it's also extremely risky because if you catch that edge on the blade while you're polishing, it's going to grab it and fling it away, potentially being bad. At the end of the day, as long as this is a functional knife, I'm not super worried about any sort of dings and scratches because this is a user and it's the overall use experience that I'm after. Let's give a quick little touch up on the polishing wheel, see what we can do, and I think we'll call this good. Man, this has been really fun so far. One last trip to the polishing station here and get some of this grease and polishing compound off of here and see how things turned out. Unfortunately, without doing a full-on sand down and refinish of this blade, there are still some deep scratches, gouges, and a little bit of pitting forming. This MBS 26 from Spyderco is a absolutely fantastic performer in the kitchen. Unfortunately, I have to do a better job of being more vigilant of keeping this dry. Maybe put a little bit of oil on it because it is not the most stainless of steels out there. I did end up using a little bit of green polishing compound here on the spine to give it that extra little bit of shine, as well as on the tip there. This thing turned out very, very nice indeed. And then of course I did have a couple little pits here that I still wasn't able to get out. So I'll have to keep an eye on those, but overall, very happy indeed. This is not going to be a show knife, but a user. I'm going to get this workbench all nice and tidied up, and we're going to be hitting the bench stones and giving this guy a fresh new edge, ready for shift work tomorrow. So there you have it, an absolute winner for sure. I'd say that was an afternoon well spent, and I really think that this thing is gonna be even better in the kitchen. I can tell already it's so much more comfortable to use in my hand, and I think it's gonna be even better when it comes to making crew dinner tomorrow when I go back to work. When it comes to modifying your own knives, it's really not that hard. It can be a little bit daunting to put those first grind lines into your blade, but with a little bit of patience and some know-how and some basic tools, you can really do some fantastic work and really customize your items to work even better for you. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video, and as always, stay safe out there.